Hello everyone, welcome to today's Hangout on Air featuring Ask an Expert series. Today we're focused on Google Spreadsheets. I'm joined here today by two esteemed colleagues. We have Justin Gale, a superstar admin from VRP. We also have Max Guinness, who is from our People Ops org, who is an internal Google Spreadsheets expert. And I'm Christina Mondini. I'm from our enterprise team here at Google. Now, so today, we're going to go through a couple tips. So Justin's going to have his top tips. Then we're going to hear from Max on his top tips. And then we're going to use the Q&A from the moderator that you guys have been filling in for the last couple weeks. Just a reminder to everybody, if you have any questions during the broadcast, if we do have time, we'll be sure to monitor the comment section of this post. So feel free to put your questions there. All right, and with that, Justin, why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Justin Gale. My biggest tip probably for Google Spreadsheets, because everybody seems to ask me, is how do you link Google Spreadsheets? You know, you've got data in one, data in another, and you don't like copying and pasting over and over again. So finally I looked it up and figured it out and thought I'd present that today because it turns out I use it almost every day. So starters, here's a little bit of info that Google says about it. It's called ImportRange if you're looking for it. They've got a few parameters, but not a whole lot of detail, so I thought I'd tell you more about it. Next. A few key points to remember when you're using this ImportRange function. It's a one-way link, so your source data, that main spreadsheet, you don't update it in your destination. You update it and it pushes that updates to your other stuff. When you're linking, you can do a cell, a range of cells, or you can even use a named range on that source spreadsheet. You can use this function in formulas. Now, some people have asked and they sit there with both spreadsheets up and they go, hey, I'm updating one. Why isn't the update on the new spreadsheet? Well, they're not instantaneous. They're pretty quick, but give it a second or two. Fifth point is you can use VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP against this, because people say, hey, I want to do a VLOOKUP against data in another spreadsheet. I'll demonstrate that a little bit later on. And my final point before we start is when you're using this function, don't try to sort the data. It really screws everything up. Next. So here's my sample data for everybody to see and play with. I've got links to all this later on that you can all use. But it's basically some employee information. So first thing you need to do when you're linking spreadsheets is you need to take the key from the spreadsheet you're using. What I'm showing you is just where you steal that when you open your spreadsheet from the top. It's a little bit of text in between the key and the #GID. Next. So I thought let's do a demonstration of how this works. So I wanted to create a little telephone list from that data. So I take a blank spreadsheet and next slide. Basically key in the formula, input range, key in the key, and the cells I want to use. Now notice on here, for people who use a lot of Google Spreadsheets, I'm just saying the two cells. Next. The big deal about this is there's a whole lot of ways you can reference it. You can reference by cell, you can reference by sheets and cells, you can reference named sheets, you know, so if you have different names. And then also when you're doing your spreadsheets, if you're doing a lot of these on one of them, you may want to use a little named range so that you don't have to keep typing that really big long spreadsheet ID.
And by the way, about these named ranges, we'll actually come back to this. Some people had questions about how to protect ranges, so that'll be part of the Q&A section, so stay tuned.
Good point, Max. So basically, we finish up with our formulas, pop that in on the other column. Notice, first one I did B, this time I'm doing column E. We hit Enter, and our next results. We've pulled over only some of the data from that other spreadsheet without retyping any of it. Next slide. So now let's use import range in calculations. Let's say you've got some sales data, but you really don't want to have that in the hands of executives or somebody else. You just want them to see some answers from it. You can do that real easy with import range. example sales data, just so everybody sees. I've got a couple of salespeople, some projections, some actual sales. Next. And what I really want to do is I want to pull the actual sales from 2 sales reps. So you can see what I've done is just a simple profitability report, and I've got my sales total from ImportRange, where I'm actually taking and adding the totals from another spreadsheet, 2 different cells, in this case F3 and F9. Produce results. Next. Now the cool thing about this is, let's say your sales updates. Here we add in $85,000 in sales, and that'll automatically update on our other spreadsheet. Next. We don't have to do anything, and our total automatically recalculates. Great way to present information to people without giving them all the detail that they don't need or that might confuse them or might even be confidential. So now one of my favorites, using VLOOKUP and ImportRange. I use this all the time, looking up employees, other information, financial information, whatever I'm doing. And people say, well, how do you do it? Google really doesn't tell you, so I thought I'd explain it. You can't do an import range from one spreadsheet to another, VLOOKUP rather, but what you do is use an import range to pull all your data across and then VLOOKUP against that. So I'll give you a little example. Again, we start with our employee file as a great example file and go forward. We're going to do an import range on the entire amount of data. That way we can pull any column that we want. So you see I've specified the range of A to F to get all the data. Next. I go into a new spreadsheet and I do an import range of that whole amount of data, and the whole thing comes across. And now the fun part. I want to do a VLOOKUP against it. So I've named that range. I called it dynamic data because it's going to keep updating when we update that employee file. And I can do a VLOOKUP against it. So I key in a formula and lets you basically do a lookup on email address and return some info. So let's see how that really looks. As you can see here in a little example, I do a VLOOKUP on my own name and it doesn't come up with a territory, but I look up something that actually exists and it updates. Pretty slick, and I don't have to rekey any data. Now for everybody's reference or anybody who wants it, I did put these spreadsheets out for public consumption, read only, so you can take a copy, play with it, and understand how the functions work. That's probably my favorite tip.
Great. Thank you, Justin.
Cool. Thanks, Justin. Yeah, I use ImportRange all the time. It's definitely a favorite here at Google. Again, my name's Max Gennis. I'm from the People Ops group, which is Google's HR team, and I'm a data analyst. So we have, almost 40 or around 40,000 people at Google. We get over 2 million applications to jobs at Google every year. So there's a lot of big data to comb through, and Google Sheets is one of our go-to tools. So today I'm going to talk specifically about some other special formulas. So ImportRange is one of those that Justin touched on. Next slide. And really, I think of it as Sheets has at least 3 types of special formulas. So one is formulas that connect to the web for real-time information. And we'll go through some stock information to demonstrate this. Array formulas that expand to the range that you specify. So rather than just getting a single cell in a cell that you're entering a formula in, you can actually get a full region. And then finally, formulas that return visual information. So we'll go through some charts within cells, and there's also a way to import images, which we'll talk about as well. And to demo all of these together, we're going to use a case study of trying to chart the year-to-date stock price of the top 5 Fortune 500 companies. And I just grabbed this data a couple days ago, so it's pretty fresh. So here's a spreadsheet that I set up just to kick it off. And I just pulled this data offline off of money.cnn.com. It has the top 5 companies based on Fortune 500, which is based on revenue, and also their stock. So nice. So we're going to input formulas into these columns D and E, the yellow cells, to get the current price and also the trend of it year to date. So we'll be using the Google Finance function to go through this, and this takes at least 2 different parameters to the formula. The first one is just a symbol, so we'll be using the stock ticker, although you can also do conversions between currencies. And the second one is attributes, so you can get a lot of information about stock, the profit, all these different things. We'll be using just the stock price itself. So to see this in action, we're going to point this to cell C7, which you can see highlighted in green is WMT, the stock ticker for Walmart. And we're just going to pull down the price. Now, when we hit enter on that formula, we grab the price, which was at least a couple days ago, $78.08.
Wow. So how often does it update? Do you have to refresh for an update?
It refreshes automatically. It can be updated. There might be up to a 20-minute lag. So actually, anytime you have this formula in your spreadsheet, you'll see a disclaimer at the bottom of the spreadsheet saying that there might be up to a 20-minute lag. Good question. Thanks.
Hey, Max, does that go against global markets or just the U.S. market?
I believe it specifies in the disclaimer. I think it's at least New York. I'm not sure about global, actually. I'll check on that. So when you copy paste this down, you grab just the cell. You can do copy, and then from the edit menu, paste special, paste formulas. There's a keyboard shortcut for this as well, which we can go through later. And this grabs you the formulas all the way down without messing up the formatting. So we're done with the first part. The second part is grabbing this whole trend. And this is where Google Finance actually has these third and fourth arguments. They're kind of hidden for the beginning and end of a range that you want to plot all data for. When you hit enter on this, so again, we've got Google Finance, Walmart, price, first day of the year, and today is a formula that just returns today's date. It grabs you every day that there was stock trading activity, so it omits weekends and holidays, and the closing price of the stock. So this gives you, maybe 100 different data points, and it auto-populates. So this is where it's an auto-expanding array formula. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, finally, the third piece was formulas that return visual information, and we're going to use the Sparkline function here. And all you do is type in equals Sparkline, and you can either select a range of just numbers, and it'll plot that, or a range with dates and numbers, sort of a time series data set. So we'll use that second option here. We're going to grab all the Walmart data that we plotted or that we got from the Google Finance function earlier and pass along to the Sparkline function. Once we hit enter there, we get a plot right there in the cell. No insert chart, no extra scripting. It's just a formula right there. Now, if we want to do this for all the stocks, we'll really want to bake that whole Google Finance Sparkline function into a single formula so that we can just copy paste it down the same way we did to get the current price. And to do that, this formula looks a bit intimidating, and it is fairly long. There's 3 nested formulas here. We have from innermost today going all the way out to Google Finance and then Sparkline. But essentially all we're doing is taking what we wrote to grab the entire trend of Google Finance from today, or from the beginning of the year to the end of today, and then passing that inside a Sparkline function, nesting that all together. When we hit enter, we actually get the exact same result, and if we just drag that all the way down, we get the same information for every other stock ticker. And now we're done. We've done our accomplishment. So,
very cool.
So just to recap, we went through 3 different types of formulas. Next slide. So the first one, again, was formulas that connect to the web for real-time information. Google Finance is the one we talked about today. Google Translate also uses Google's translation engine to translate any text to any other language, and Google's translation engine improves all the time, so it's pretty up to date. ImportXML also grabs you some structured data from it. Google Finance was also the auto-expanding array formula we went through. If you just specify a longer period, it gives you more data than just that cell. There's some others like filter, so using the filter functionality within a formula. Query, which lets you use SQL language within a formula, and unique removes duplicates as well. And finally, the last one was Sparkline, which gave us that neat trend within a cell. The image function also does something similar. You can just point it to any image file, the URL of it on the web, and it will put that inside a cell. And if you want to see all the formulas, just go to Help Function List, and they're all there. So.
Thank you so much, Max.
Great, thank you.
All right, and with that, guys, we are ready. Oh, I thought it was going to be a drum roll like that.
There we go.
We are ready for the Q&A from the moderator. So here I'm looking at the moderator here, and I saw that there's a couple of feature request type questions regarding bigger sheets, encryption, non-adjacent cell selection. Max, what do you have to say about those?
Yeah, sure. So the first one, first of all, I'm not on the product team, but I work with them fairly regularly, so we'll definitely pass along all these requests to the team, and they'll prioritize in future releases. I did want to talk about a couple of them, though. So specifically encryption. We don't offer encryption of the data specifically, but there's a lot of security. Google takes security very seriously on all its products. So we use HTTPS, for example, on all things. You can enable two-factor authentication, which I highly recommend. And in general, we have a lot of state-of-the-art security technology behind all our products. So we don't really think it's as necessary, but again, the product team will look into it. The other thing is cells or spreadsheets with more than 256 columns. Another product you might consider if you're running into size limitations in Google Sheets is Google Fusion Tables. So that's essentially if you've used Microsoft Access or any other database program that sort of sits on your desktop, it's like that, but in the cloud. So you can import CSVs, you can import Excel files, or you can link it to Google Spreadsheets, and it'll turn it into a structured data set that you can then join to other data sets. You can summarize it the same way you maybe do it in a pivot table in Google Sheets, and you can also visualize. So there's some mapping creations, lots of cool visualizations in there.
Fusion Table's been around for quite a while, hasn't it, Max? I think I used it like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think even longer than that. I think 3 or 4 years.
One of those real good kept secrets that nobody knows about.
Exactly, and just how to get there, since it's not usually in the default in your like create new, you want to just connect more apps. So when you do a new from your Drive home folder, there's a way to connect more apps, and then you just search for Fusion Tables, and they'll be right there.
Great, thank you. I know I used to use them all the time. I need to get back into that.
Yeah.
So this next question is also for Max. Is there any way to use a spreadsheet to render live statistics or graphs, which can be then inserted into a web page? I'm thinking about a solution how to have a survey with Google Drive Forms, which the results would be shown live on the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've actually got some slides on this. I don't think, Christina, had you used this feature before this question came up?
Yes, I use it all the time with
Awesome. Yeah, so this wasn't something I've used much in the past, but just doing it to go through it was really a great learning opportunity. It's really easy. So all you do is first you create your chart, and this was one that was just based on some pivot table data on who has responded to a specific form and what country they were from. So you sort of see, you can just select a map type. As long as you have the country names correctly in here, it will highlight the correct countries for you. No extra work needed. So once we have the chart, you go into your site, go to Insert Chart, and then it's basically done. It asks you for the spreadsheet where your chart is in, and to select the chart. We don't have that in here, but once you actually do that, it's right there. And the great thing about it, too, is that you get all the interactivity of the charts that you would have in Google Sheets. So for example, in this one, if you hover over one of the countries, it will tell you the country name and also the variable that you're plotting, so the number of responses in this case. It's extra powerful, too, if you have the form within the site. because this updates automatically, almost in real time. And as soon as someone enters a response to the form, they can actually see the map update. For example, if they're in a new country, it'll update right there in front of their eyes.
Thanks, Max. This next question is for Justin. Is there a way to link data from one spreadsheet to another? Not one tab to another, but one doc to a totally different doc. For example, I have a master spreadsheet with names and email addresses. Could I pull data from that sheet into another?
Yep, that again was the import range function that I demonstrated. You can do cells, columns, you can use it multiple times, up to 50 times you can import 50 different things into a single spreadsheet. That's the current limit from Google.
Yeah, and as Justin knows, it's one of my very, very favorite formulas.
The other thing that's cool about that is we only talked about, or I think we only went through ranges that are specified from start to finish, so like A1 to F12. You can actually do all the way A through F, so just A:(F), and it'll grab the entire range. Anytime there's a new row that's added to that source spreadsheet, it'll go into the destination as well.
Yeah,
so.
good point, Max. There's so many tips and tricks for not naming ranges, but for inputting ranges that really aren't all listed in one good place. But play around with it. There's some real neat stuff and great tips and tricks for doing it.
So this next question is also for Justin. If you enter a hyperlink formula and want to edit that URL, it does not let you edit the cell contents to change it. You have to remove the link and edit. But it's no longer a hyperlink. How do you edit this?
So I've actually seen this one a lot, and the first thing I thought of when you do it is there's a formula called hyperlink, equals hyperlink, blah, blah, blah. I use Chrome a lot. I even use Chromebooks and Chromeboxes, and I'm used to all the keyboard shortcuts. Most people click on cells to enter them, and I hit enter. So I went over to a desktop and tried this and found out exactly what they were asking about. Apparently hyperlinks you can't actually click on to edit. You can click up in the formula bar, but if you click on the cell, it wants to jump you to the link. So the trick is either hit enter on the cell or go up to that top, to that little formula bar, and click up in there to edit it.
And by the way, there's actually a lot of different keyboard shortcuts in Google Sheets. So, for example, Shift space is one that gets you to select the entire row. Control space will select a full column. You can do Control with the arrow keys with Shift to sort of jump around a larger area. And also, if you're used to in other programs sort of holding Alt and then going through the menus just through the Alt commands, that exists in Google Sheets as well. So for example, if I hold Alt and then press E and then do S, that takes me to paste special. Then I do V, and that gets me to paste special values. So people might be used to this Alt ESV to paste values. All that exists in Google Sheets. And if you go to the Help keyboard shortcuts, it'll give you a list of all the things you can do, including what I just described. So.
I didn't know that. Very cool. I know that there was also a question about what's the best way to get started on AppScript. What do you guys have to say to that?
Yeah, so Google does have some materials on the developer site. So if you go to, I believe it's developers.google.com or google.com/developers, you can just search for AppScript, and there are self-guided tutorials. They start fairly basic and get all the way up to devising essentially entire programs with UIs that can pop out at the user depending on what's going on in a calendar. It can scrape the calendar API. You can send emails from Google Sheets using this. So there's a lot you can do. I'd encourage people to just check out those initial resources to get started.
Yeah, I've used that as well. It's a great resource. Some of it I found a little bit confusing maybe for people who aren't quite sure what they're doing. So I actually wrote a little blog about this. Specifically, it was taking calendar data and dumping it into a spreadsheet. But if you go out and visit justingale.com, I have a little blog about pulling calendar data, your first app script, really step-by-step, kind of paralleling some of the stuff at Google, but maybe a little better language for some people.
The other thing I'll mention is that AppScript is actually essentially JavaScript. So it's really built on the open web, open standards. And if you're ever looking to learn JavaScript, there's a ton of resources available for that. You can go to codeacademy.com. There's a lot of other ones with sort of interactive JavaScript tutorials, and most of that is applicable to AppScript as well.
Great, thanks guys. And then this question is also for both of you guys. Is there a way to share selected cells, columns, or rows?
Yeah, so I think one way actually is sort of, it's unclear exactly where the questioner wants to go with this, but one way is through ImportRange. So you can just share a spreadsheet that pulls from another spreadsheet. Do you want to talk about that, Justin?
Sure. You know, obviously you've got ImportRange. A little bit interesting parts on that most people haven't played with. Let's say I want to share an ImportRange with Max. So I have my main spreadsheet, I'll just call it Spreadsheet A, with all my real data, and I want to selectively share part of it with Max so he can run his big analysis on it. So we make Spreadsheet B. Now when I select that ImportRange on there, because Max doesn't have rights to Spreadsheet A, he can never change that. So essentially, I've protected and shared information with Max. One of them little secret things, I don't know how long or if it's really officially supported by Google. It's not documented anywhere, but you heard it here first.
And there is one other way, actually. So Justin went through named ranges with respect to ImportRange before. In that same dialog is actually protected ranges. So you can make sure that someone can, they'll always be able to see the data if they have access to it, unless you protect a specific sheet on the spreadsheet. But they will be prohibited from editing it if you protect it using this dialog. So for this one, I just selected 3 cells, went to data, then named and protected ranges. That gives you this dialog on the right side of the slide where you can add a range. I just named it protect range. And if you check that box that says protect and hit done, it'll take you to the next slide, which is a dialog. And this is just me sharing with myself, and it'll let you say, okay, do you want the other people to be able to edit it or just comment on these cells? So I selected on my corporate account just commentability. If you hit save changes, now this is what it would look like from my corporate account. I can't edit these cells, so it's sort of grayed out with these diagonal bars. So if I tried to edit it, it would give me an error saying contact the spreadsheet owner, and they'll be able to give you access.
Right, so you basically can mix and match these to achieve most of the desired results you want. But there was one thing that nobody really said that when you're collaborating on spreadsheets is a pretty big deal to me. I don't know about you, Max, but I use that notification option all the time. You know, for people who aren't familiar with it, you're working collaboratively on a spreadsheet, and don't email around that you made changes. Don't email the spreadsheet. Turn on notifications. That's a user setting, so I go in and say, hey, notify me, you know, immediately when a cell changes, a range changes, the page changes, or notify me at the end of the day so I know that Max, you know, has some new data to look at. Highly advise if you're really collaborating on spreadsheets or emailing them around, stop doing it and use some of the cool features in there.
Yeah, I think that's another feature that's really underutilized. I don't personally use it too much, but Justin actually brought it to my attention that there's some new features there, and I'm definitely going to start using it more. So.
Yeah, I use it all the time myself with during events. I want to know when people have new comments or new feedback to enter in. And guys, with that, we are out of time. Thank you so much, Justin and Max, for joining us here today. And I want to also thank Debbie, who is helping me in production today. And of course, I'm going to thank all the live viewers out there who are watching us. We're going to be posting a recording of this on our YouTube channel, and we'll have a follow-up post on our Enterprise Plus page. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Christina. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day.